blue. You saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart.
It all started when I was in 8th grade, and one of my friends said to me, Carol, see if you can get on that safety patrol, and if you end up as captain at the end of the year, you're going to get a trip to, let's see, it wasn't Washington, D.C., the Dells area, because the boy that got chosen got to go to Washington, D.C., the girl went to the Dells area with the group. Well, I kind of forgot about it, but I ended up as lieutenant, I think they called it, of the girls, your monitors in the hall. The 8th graders did that. So you're voted by popularity in your class, so I got that position. Then they had another voting at the half year, and I don't know why, but I got to be captain of the girls. So at the end of the year, I totally forgot this. And Sister Rudolph was my teacher. She came up to me and she says, how would you like a trip to Washington, D.C.? And I'm like, wow. I mean, that was a big deal because we went on a train. So I said, yeah, that'd be real great. So we left like on Wednesday, came back on Sunday. So I was excited about that. Got all packed up and I left on May 7th, 1952. And there was a whole group of us. There was a picture in the paper, and we were all on that picture. I'm trying to think, maybe like 50? Something like that from Racine.
I went to St. Mark's in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Sister Everaldis was my 8th grade nun. And it was the first year for St. Mark's to have anybody from the patrol go. That I said that wrong, but it was new to St. Mark's, and for some reason I was chosen captain of the patrol boys and girls. And as the year progressed, my parents were called by one of the priests and asked if it was okay if I went to Washington, D.C. as representative for St. Mark's. And they said yes. So that's where Grandma and Grandpa met, was on the train to Washington, D.C. And she was from Racine Patrol Boys and Girls, and they come walking down the aisle one day, and this good-looking young guy who's kind of wise took his camera out, and there was 3 of these girls walking down the aisle, and I said, can I take your picture? And they all posed and let me take their picture. And on their way back by me, I said, well, I got to send the picture someplace. How about giving me your names and addresses? And so that's how I met Grandma. And then come to find out, she said, where did I go to school? And I said, St. Mark's in Kenosha. And she looked at me and she says, well, my aunt is your 8th grade nun. And eventually, Sister Everaldis changed her name to her.
They had to change their names.
They had to change their names.
And she picked Dorothy.
And she picked Sister Dorothy.
Yeah, Sister Dorothy.
So that was how we met. And then, of course, in Washington, we weren't, we went around as a big group to see the Washington Monument, and we had.
Went to the Capitol,
yeah,
went to the White House.
Did we have breakfast at the White House there, or was that dinner?
No, they were doing some remodeling. We couldn't get in.
We had breakfast someplace.
The Capitol could have been.
Okay. And, you met your senators from Wisconsin and a bunch of other senators and congressmen and so forth. And matter of fact, at one time, I had a book that was signed by Senator Joe McCarthy from Wisconsin. And then, of course, this motel or hotel at that time that we stayed at was kind of a U shape going up. I gotta tell this is good.
Tell that story.
And
Ended up and got in trouble.
this is where we get in trouble, you know. I mean, the Racine group was on one side and we were on the other side, and we had the windows open. We're yelling back and forth and throwing things back and forth across the
They were too
from
bad.
window to window until we got reported. And well, and you know, on the way back, of course, in those days they had on the trains, they had the streamliners, and they had the observation car. And of course, every time the girls went through my car to get to the observation car, you know, I had a file of them. But Chris is laughing.
I'm just laughing because your car sort of was.
Yeah. So then when we got back to Racine and got off, we stopped at Kenosha first, and the Kenosha group got off, and I walked down the platform there and got down to where Carol was sitting and waved goodbye to her, and then I don't know, I guess we started calling each other and writing letters.
Some letters,
We
yeah.
wrote some letters back and forth.
We
and,
dated on and off through high school.
Yeah, yep. And then I went in the service in 1957. I enlisted in the Air Force. And I was overseas in the Philippines and Taiwan. And I had a lot of fun over there. I sent Carol a
Noritake, China.
Noritake, China. That's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah. What was it? 12-place setting. Yeah. Yeah, from the base exchange over there, and they actually it was ordered at the base exchange, and it came out of Japan, and they sent it to the States. So okay,
So,
you two.
well, we went together for about close to 9 years. And I was working at the bank. And then he wrote to me and asked if I'd pick him up at the airport when he flew in from California, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he said, just you, so I picked him up. And from then on, I think we just decided we were going to get married.
Well, we went together for a couple of months,
Yeah, not too long.
and then we decided that we wanted to be together for our life, and here we are.
And it went fast, I'll tell you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the most trouble that Uncle Mac got into?
I couldn't even begin to tell you.
I don't know. There's a lot of stories. Actually, your mother could probably tell you.
You know what, though, back on the dishes, you always had a little story about that.
When you came home.
Well, I came home from work one day, and boy, I was walking. I think at that time too. I got home, and then my mother says to me, "Carol, there's 2 big crates on the front for you." I said, "For me?" And I went out there, and here were these. I mean, they were huge crates, and all these dishes were wrapped in there.
Could have been a leg
But
lamp.
there,
I had no idea.
Wasn't there something about, there was another guy that really liked you?
Well,
But
had a
I
few.
remember you telling
Yeah,
us.
I know he wanted to marry me, but I said no. I have a boyfriend I want to go out with.
And you would tell us as kids that
Yeah.
you knew when he sent those dishes, that was going to be the guy.
Well, I
That
knew
was Dad.
before. It was kind of
We
like
kind of knew before, but
we just, gosh, I don't know. We didn't get engaged, but through high school, I had your grandfather's ring. The girls would wear it around their neck. I don't know if they ever did that when you were young or in high school. And boy, the wit came up to me one day and he grabs the ring. He says, "That's a no-no."
Okay, and who is that? The whip?
Father Wood Koviak. He was known throughout Racine. He was a super priest. He was excellent. But I don't know, I always liked him. He liked me. He kind of looked for me at times. Had a good relationship with him. But when Grandpa came home, it's kind of like we knew we had to either get engaged or that. That was it. We knew we wanted.
Well, let's put it this way to continue the story. When I went into the service, I was sent over to the Philippines. And while I was in the Philippines, I was sitting at my desk one day, and this this huge guy come walking in there, and on one lapel he had a little cross, and on the other one he had a lieutenant colonel's insignia. And he walked up to the desk, and I says, "Good morning, Father." And he looked at me and he said, "You behave yourself or I'm calling her." So I just sat there and looked at him, and I'm wondering who it was. Then I remember Sister Dorothy saying that she had, see, that was your cousin?
Well, his last name was Kessler.
Yeah, his last name was Kessler, so she had relation in the service, and I thought, here I am, I'm stuck, so they're following me around, making sure I'm being a good boy, so. But Father John was very, very nice person, and we had a lot of fun with
Well,
him.
he took you to parties at private homes, didn't he? Hey,
See, this is the kind of stuff we want to hear.
it's hard when you're across, you're overseas like that, and you're alone, and you've never been away from home.
Well,
It's hard.
he lived off base too, if I remember right. And he had his
He would
sister
treat
with him. And I go out there to where they were living, and we always have fun.
Yeah, it's nice.
Is that the Father John we visited on our honeymoon? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't see him in the later years when you saw him, but before that, he was always a joker.
Oh,
he always had something to say to make you laugh.
He was very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The driving was scary. He was nice.
And for time reference, you were serving between wars, basically.
I went in 1957, right as the Korean War ended, and I came home. Well, I needed 6 months to come home stateside to another base, which means I only had, I think it was 3 months left to serve, so they wanted me to re-enlist for a year, and I said no, I wouldn't do it, not to just come back to a stateside base. So I got what they were calling at that time an early out, and I was placed in the reserves, but I never had to attend meetings or go. It was like a ready reserve. If I was needed, they would, send a telegram and give me my orders, and I'd have to report.
Right, and as a reference for the kids here, it's Grandpa served between the Korean War and the Vietnam War.
Yeah, I got out of the service just as the Vietnam War was really starting up.
And you did have one time where you were on call,
Yeah,
alert,
yeah.
and they were all packed, all ready to go. Because I think I don't know if you called me close to that time or what, and you said that, or you
Yeah.
called me after, I can't remember.
Well, that's like when things were starting to get hot over in Vietnam, and we actually
So it got
weren't
canceled.
too much into the war at that time, but the alert got canceled, so.
And then it wasn't too long after you were home, then they went
Yeah.
into
So
Vietnam.
then they-
So Dad, like what presidents then did you serve under?
Geez, Andy,
The
It'd
Eisenhower.
be Eisenhower, right?
And then who was after Eisenhower?
Well, that's Kennedy then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been
Probably
easy.
I
But I think you were out before Kennedy.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were married one day.
Yeah, we were married already.
Yeah.
So what was your job in the Air Force?
At that time, it was listed as a chaplain's assistant. You would, I had a desk, and when the troops came in, they always had to go through the chaplain's office. And like I took care of the Catholic guys, and this guy over here took care of the Protestant, and then you had the Jewish and so forth. And you just make paperwork out on them when they were baptized and all that kind of stuff. And then they went into our files in case, something happened to them. Well, we had the information already there. And I went from the Philippines, I went up to, well, I don't know what the island's called now. At that time it was called Taiwan, and then it was called Formosa, or it was called Formosa in Taiwan. I don't know which way it was. Anyways, I had fun up there because we go on leave into Taipei, which was the capital, and you go around, and we'd always go by the, what was Chiang Kai-shek, I think, was the leader up there at that time. And we go by the palace up there, and, the guards were out there, and you get to see how they were outfitted and all of that kind of stuff. It was really interesting, some of the customs up there. And then while I was up there also, we had a wait a minute, am I getting, no, we had a Chinese driver, or Taiwanese driver, and I would have to go from one base up to another base. And the chaplain was either following or already up there, depending. And then I do some work up there, and then I get driven back down. So we were going up through the mountains, and I remember this one time we had a 52 Chevy. And we got halfway up the mountain, and of course the car broke down. So he's like, all right. He says, he could speak pretty good English, so he says, you stay in the back of the car. And he says, do not use your camera. And I can't question him, and I says, well, why can't I take pictures of some of these people walking around here? And he says, no, he says, because they will come after you because they think that you are capturing their soul in that camera. So he had to get a ride back down to the bottom of the mountain and call for another car. And so then they sent up, at that time they were using Nash's, and they sent a 59 Nash up, brand new car for our staff car. So then we just continued on our way, and that was a couple of little incidences that happened over there, Anytime we went on alert in the Philippines, I was usually assigned to the hospital. We'd have to patrol the back of the hospital. And a couple times I was assigned right to the chapel where I was working at, which was kind of nice because I had all my gear there. I just had to go pick the rifle up at the armory and head back down there. I had a motor scooter over there, a Lamborghini motor scooter, and it was a pretty neat little scooter. Got me around real nice. So, Carol?
So at this time, when he's serving in the Philippines, what are you doing, Mom?
Working a job, working at the bank, Farmers and Merchants Bank.
How much did you make?
Oh my gosh, very little. I don't know.
Remember?
Don't remember.
And
I was living at home.
Well, Okay, I'm
You
sorry.
remember?
I don't remember what you
Farmers and
made.
Merchants, F&M, I remember.
F&M Bank, yeah, I was
over
a
on
te-
Douglas Avenue.
Started out in bookkeeping and ran the IBM machine and ended up as a teller. And then I ended up working the drive-in. Did odd jobs with
Did
some of the
you-
officers.
Did you ever have any encounters with criminals in the bank when you were working there?
Oh boy. Well, I know one time I caught a bad 20, I think it was, came through my lip.
Whatever
So,
you were doing, I'm here
you
to...
said that one time you caught a person trying to give you fake money.
Well, they didn't know it.
Oh,
but
they didn't?
No.
Did you tell them?
Well, yeah, because if you get a counterfeit bill, you cannot, you take it right away, you confiscate it.
Yeah.
It's yours at the bank.
So,
You're out.
like, how did you see it? Did it say, because on some counterfeit money, it says commercial on it if you hold it up to the light, or it doesn't have the water stain?
It didn't look right to me. Years ago, it was a little different than it is today, because they didn't have all the technology they have today. But it just came through, the feel wasn't right on the bill. It was a pretty good copy, but I just knew right away it wasn't real. So I right away took it, went to an officer,
Cause
said,
you-
I just took this in. She says, it's a bad one, you know. I said, I know. So I did a lot of commercial work with commercial businesses.
Because with money, you can kind of tell, it feels
When
kind
you
of,
handle a lot of it,
it feels
you know.
kind of a little soft, kind of.
Boy, I don't even know how to, it might have been like a little slippery, greasy,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as,
It's like regular paper kind of feel.
yeah, and on your bills, I don't know if you'll notice, there's all those little markings like reds running through little lines,
Yeah,
almost like
like,
threads.
yeah.
And
Yeah, you
anybody
do
that
that.
tries to copy that, that's real difficult to get the
See,
right paper.
I see what you're talking about, like all that,
Jeez,
the little lines and stuff in there.
Boy, these are pretty bad bills.
Oh,
Man, these are pretty washed out. See, today it's a little bit different too.
See, it's kind of hard to copy all these little wrinkles and stuff.
No, it's, there were little markings. The bills today are a little different than what they were, that's over 50 years ago, you know?
Because did some of them have like maybe a $20 bill that has a whole bunch of 20s on the back?
No, they look pretty much like, it's hard to tell. I mean,
They've changed it.
Yeah.
but even today, some of those they really look like they could be the real thing.
Yeah.
You know? I guess now they use a pen that they run over the bill.
Yeah, something like
And if it, I don't know, either turns color or whatever, then that's bad.
nope, I feel the thing keeps creaking. Just framed up there.
Where were we?
Oh, I had asked a question about Dillinger. You had some story you would tell us as we were kids about Dillinger.
Well, my friend Ursula Patsky was working American Bank downtown, and she was a young girl. And Dillinger came in to rob the bank, and he took her, and he took one of the other guy officers, and with them when they left the bank after they robbed it. And they took the two of them. She says, I thought I was gonna die. I really felt that was it. They took them, it was wintertime, they took them out into the country on their way out of town, and they tied them to a tree out there with shoelaces. That's what they had. Okay, but it was winter and it was cold, and they did get away, and they didn't kill them.
Yeah, I remember watching a thing on the History Channel about that. And it said that when you robbed the one in Racine, the cops were like around the bank and everything, and that's why they took hostages.
That was the woman that hired
Yeah,
me
that's-
when I worked
oh,
at
that's-
Farmers and Merchants Bank.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the area here that we live in, all these lakes out here,
Yes.
these are all the summer homes and getaways
Right.
for all these Chicago gangsters.
And they were
That's part
tough.
of
They
life.
were tough guys.
Yeah.
And he would come in there with that gun, and he would. I remember my dad saying he just took that gun and he just sprayed the whole wall like
Wow.
that, and it just came through. Yeah, they were tough. They were. But yeah, Ursula told that story many a times. She had the
Okay.
shoelaces.
So then there's at some point, do you actually propose to Mom, Dad?
At one point, yeah.
Okay, I've never heard the story. You know,
I don't-
Did you offer Mom a ring? I'm interested in what happened.
Well,
Gosh, I tell you, John, it's like we.
first of all, can we go back just a little bit on this?
Yeah, sure. You can go where.
I
wherever
don't
you want.
know, I don't recall any money amounts that mother made, or grandma made. But when I came out of the service, I didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, I was a young man, 20, I think I was 23 because I was 24 when we got married, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't go together very long
And,
after you came home. 'Cause we didn't have to.
I was at home with my parents one day, and this guy came in, and it turned out that he was worked for an outfit called Retail Credit Corporation, which he was an investigator for them for credit reports and insurance reports, insurance of all, car insurance, accident, whatever. And he interviewed my dad because my dad had, had a policy coming due. And my dad mentioned that I didn't have a job. Well, he says, here's my card. He says, give me a call and I'll get you an appointment to make an application and talk to our supervisor. He says, we're looking for young men to train, And that was my first job out of the service. And I held that for a couple of years.
And that was doing what exactly?
Insurance investigations, credit investigations.
Oh.
In other words, you take a credit card out or you apply for credit, and I would have to go to your neighbor's door and knock on the door and say, do you know Andy Pomeroy? And is he gainfully employed? Is he married? How many kids does he have? Do you know where he works or what he does? Does he drink? Is he a boozer? All that kind of stuff. I mean, it wasn't really nice work, but it was a job. And so from there, I got a job at Merchant's Delivery. And I think that was just before we were married, was it? Or was it after?
It was after.
It was after we were
working for that
married. We had gotten married. Well, we talked about getting married. And in those days, of course, your mother says, or grandma says, she says, you got to ask my dad.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did.
No, I did not. Because I was surprised when you went and asked him. That was the way
All right,
your dad
whatever.
probably told you that.
No.
You gotta ask her dad. He did. I didn't know.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, we went and picked the ring out together, and then one night in the hallway there,
Yep. He
I
just
took the
proposed
gas.
at the house.
Yeah, at her house, her parents' house.
Yep.
I proposed there, and she went in
Because we
and
went to
showed
tell
her
my dad.
dad.
My dad's.
So what? How? I mean,
What do you mean, how?
did you get down on one knee or
Of
did
course
you just
not.
like bump
No.
her? Oh yeah, I found a ring here.
No,
No.
no, it was, I didn't get down on my knee, no, but, I just took the ring out of the pocket, and I went and picked it up at the jeweler's, and went and took it out of my pocket, and opened it up, and I says, will you marry me, if I remember right?
I said, yes, I will.
And she said, yes, she will. She almost jumped on me, but,
Yeah, right.
So this was in the house on Green Street?
yeah.
2037.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about the house.
On Green Street, my grandfather built the house. My parents His wife had passed away and he was giving up the house, so my parents bought the house from my grandfather and
Which grandfather?
Grandpa Kessler and my mother's father. And so I lived there my whole life until we got married. And then we lived,
And that house was just a block, not even a block away from the church.
it was half a block from the church
Half
and
a
the
block,
school.
yeah.
That you
So-
attended as a
Yeah,
child?
St.
right?
John
And were
Nepomuc.
married in?
No, so I went to St. John Nepomuc for up to through 9th grade, and then I went to St. Catherine's for 3 years. And of course, I worked at the bank, and during high school, I worked at Lindstrom's Bakery, and that helped me through high school.
What did you do there?
I sold bakery and candy, and then I worked the delicatessen side. Do you remember them at all, Chris?
I don't know, but
Okay.
I was a South Sider.
Okay, well, they had the second store was up on the avenue, on the bend, right around from what's that furniture place? Not
Johnson's?
Johnson's.
Okay, there was Johnson's on.
Polson's.
Okay.
You come by Polson's and you
All
go around and then
Huh.
real close to Corner House.
Yeah,
Lindstrom's
okay, so
Bakery.
that was in-
And it was a real popular bakery in town. I mean, they had the best Pringle, and it was a fun place to work. We had a good time. I would go to high school, walk down to Lindstrom's Bakery and work for several hours until they closed, and then take the bus home, do my homework, start all over the next day. That's how I went through high school, because I had to pay my way through high school. So, but it was okay. It was fun.
So tell us about your wedding day.
The wedding day.
Well, like mine started out watching a Cubs game. So how did yours start out?
I don't even remember.
It's okay.
Gosh,
And what was the weather like?
it was cold.
It was cold.
Snow blowing.
Yeah.
April
Yeah.
29th, 1961. And we had all spring clothes and light dresses the girls had, and yeah, it was really cold.
It was cold.
Because
that
when we
day.
came out of church, the snow was blowing and the rice was flying.
How about the priest that married you? Do you want to talk about him at all?
My brother assisted. My brother actually had the wedding. He had been ordained 3 years prior, and that was the first wedding that he had. That was my father, Myron Kowalski. And Sister Dorothy, the sisters were not allowed to go to the weddings or to go to anything in family doings, graduations, birthdays. They weren't allowed to do that, the Franciscans. And so she asked if she could sing in the choir for this wedding. Of course, it just happened to be our wedding. She worked it a little bit, the system. But it was really nice to have her up in the choir. She couldn't be down with the family. But right away when I walked into church and she came, she's waving at the end, Carol, Carol. You know, she was excited because
Yeah.
of John and I. She always liked John in school. And John was very popular in school. And
we had,
everybody liked him. He was.
We had Father Gene Kessler, who was
That was my mother's brother. And he was
So he was your uncle.
Jesuit.
my uncle. He was a Jesuit priest, and for a while there, he was outside. He was working in Milwaukee at Marquette.
Yeah.
He was there
And
for a
he
number of
assisted
years.
with the Mass. It was a solemn
And then we had
wedding
Father
mass.
Sukup, was it, John?
I
Or
be-
Sipple? Father Sipple.
Father
Three
Sipple.
priests?
Three priests.
You know.
It was a nice service. Very
Yeah,
nice
it was
service.
real nice service.
And my employer from the bakery there did our wedding cake, and she did a beautiful job. We had a beautiful cake.
Yep.
Everything was very, very nice. It was an exciting day. I was real
So
excited
where
when I
was the
got up.
reception held then?
It was held at St. John Nepomuc Church Basement Hall. We had our dinner down there, and we had a reception afterwards, and dancing, and we left.
So did you have a live band? been there? Your wife?
No, we didn't. We had a
No,
disc
we had-
jockey.
Was
I
it?
think, yeah. It was early afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Into evening, and then we left.
Matter of fact, I think that was reel-to-reel tape.
So, like, what kind of music?
Well, a lot of 50s.
Yeah, a lot of 50 stuff, and you
Mainly
had
probably
older
50s.
people there, so they played some of the
Had to play
waltzes
Blue Moon.
and-
That was Grandpa and my song, still is today.
Yep.
Yeah,
Blue
that was
Moon.
our song through high school. We had a lot of, in high school, boy, we had a lot of live bands, and they were big groups that played for our dances and our prom, and that was fun.
Yeah.
It was good music. Yeah. Grandpa, a lot of times, he didn't have a car. So this is where a lot of our problems came, because I would want to go to a dance or do something. We'd have something set up, and if there was any snow in the air, he'd call me and say, my dad won't give me the car. And at times, Jerry Anand, let's see, they were dating at the time, so he would drive down and pick him up, and then we would go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our little problems too, like everybody.
Well, yeah, everybody,
I
Yeah.
think it doesn't snow much around here.
Well, and the thing is, the kids today with the technology, everything's instant texting and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a phone call was expensive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
long distance.
We didn't call and
Yeah.
talk on the phone, no way.
Yeah. Not like they do today
Oh,
on
gosh.
these.
Your mother and dad wouldn't let
no.
you use a phone
No.
like that.
Can you have one phone in the house?
I mean, because, man, we were talking and
You know what the
probably-
phone number was when I was on Green Street and was a girl, Jackson 6575. That was my phone number. Do you remember? It
I
was
can't.
either
Yeah, I do
Jackson or
remember.
Prospect. And
I
we
think
had
it
the
was
phone, the
Jackson.
candlestick phone with the.
Oh, gee.
Ah,
Now, our first phone was a regular dial phone, rotary phone, but we had 3 people on the line. It was what they called a party line, and it was cheaper to have that than to have. But when you pick that receiver up, you put your hand over the mouthpiece and you listen to see if anybody was on or if
You
the
hung
dial
up and
tone was there.
gave them-
Then you quick dialed your number. Because, but they could pick the phone up and they could listen to what you were saying. They could listen, if they,
I forgot
if you
about
had that
Yeah,
type
you
of
had to share
neighbor.
those lines.
Our neighbor was an old couple that lived next door, and I can't remember who the other one was, but we didn't have any problems that way.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I don't know if you had those type of lines or not, but we didn't have all this, fancy stuff like there is today. So, and television, I think it was 1949. My brother, George, had won a television. He worked for the Nash Corporation, and he won I think it was like a 12-inch television set, black and white. And so Halloween night, we were sitting there watching TV because there weren't too many of them around. And anybody come to the door knocking for a handout, we'd ask them to come in and watch TV for a while. So,
Yeah, we didn't have television. We'd sit and listen to the radio. My mother would be knitting, and we might be working a puzzle. Did a lot of that. And I think, gosh, my neighbor Marlene, they got a television, and we would stand by the window and watch.
yeah, outside on the porch, yeah.
Let's see, who was on? Milton Berle. That was the biggie.
Yeah, that he was the big
Milton
one.
Berle. We'd stand there and watch that. What was their ad for that? Everybody would sing these
Texaco
ads.
Fire Chief.
Oh gosh.
Going back quite a few years from them going backwards, during World War II, I would say in the 40s, the early, like 41, 42, we had what they call blackouts. And if you heard that air raid siren go off, all the lights in the house went out, and we had a big console radio, so there'd be a blanket laying on the floor next to it, and you pick that up and throw it over the radio so that you could see it, but they didn't want any lights any place showing. And then as I grew into scouting, I was a Boy Scout, and then I went into Explorer Scouts. When I was an Explorer Scout, I became a civil observer, and I would meet with another person at the First National Bank in Kenosha, and he had the key, and we go in, take the elevator all the way up to the top of the building to the roof, and there was a little pigeon coop building up there, like, and we'd sit in there. And if we heard a plane, we'd go out with binoculars and try to identify the plane. And we had a sheet with all these airplanes on them at that time, you know. And then you pick the phone up and dial a certain number and give a code for where you were, and tell them what we thought the airplane was. And then they would, I guess, coordinate it somehow with the control towers and so forth, if that plane was supposed to be in the area or not. But I mean, I always, for some reason, ended up with the midnight shift.
So what were the reasons for the blackouts?
Air raids.
Oh.
That was getting toward the end of World War II. Because in 1945 was when the A-bomb was dropped. But we had, there were reports of submarines off of, I think it was Milwaukee or around in there in Lake Michigan, way out. But yeah. So, you know, I mean, you never know when something can happen. So it was pretty, and then they had the air raid wardens that would go around. They walk through the neighborhoods, and if they saw a light on, they come up and knock on your door and say, "This is the air raid warden. Turn that light off during these raids or during these alerts."
So, what is an air raid?
An air raid is where you have bombers coming over to bomb you.
You don't want them to see you?
Right,
Yeah,
that's
Germans
right.
or the Japanese.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you turn out all your lights, then they can't see on the ground, right, where buildings are.
Because at that time, radar was just more or less coming into full operation, and it wasn't like today. I mean, they got these devices where they can see into houses and see the people in the houses through thermal imagery, and we didn't have that stuff back then. So you had to protect yourself somehow.
So Mom, did you work after you got married?
I worked for not too long, a little while. And then
Yep. Then Andy
his
came.
income was pretty good, so
Then Matt came. Then Tom came.
So at that time, you're working at Merchants? Describe to the boys,
yeah.
you know, what you did. What was Merchants? They, you know. like
Okay,
your name,
Merchants, it was called Merchants Delivery. It was a delivery and a moving outfit. In other words, for an example, for delivery, we had a department store down there called
Goblets.
Goblat's. And there was 2 men to a truck. We back up to the dock and we get the sales papers, and, you know, just like when they deliver to your house here. That's the type of work it was. And we deliver and set up wash machines and all that kind of
Furniture.
stuff. Furniture.
Pianos? You talked about pianos.
We move pianos.
And didn't you deliver or have something to do with some of the Johnson family from Johnson Wax or something?
Well, yeah, we used to, Merchants had more or less a local contract with S.C. Johnson's to move their employees in and move them out if they were going to states that we had permits for. So there were some of the really big wigs at S.C. Johnson's that I was on jobs with them, moving them around and stuff. Yeah.
And one of those moving jobs, like my first tricycle come out of that somehow?
Oh.
I have the story wrong.
No, we were on this one moving job. It was a local in Racine. And I went out to check the garage out and get some stuff to put in the truck. And I looked out in the back and they had this big pile of, I'll call it junk, okay? And there was this nice tricycle in there. They were three-wheel tricycle. And I thought, gee, that's a neat little bike. I'm going to take that. So I asked if I could have it, and they said, yeah, go ahead, So I took it home, and I painted it, and I took the wheels off, and we went over to a bicycle shop and had new rubber spun on the frames. And then I come to find out, I took the bike in there and showed it to the guy, and he says, wow, he says, that's a tailor-made bike, and he says, that's one of the best bikes on the market at that time. And
That was quite a hunk of metal.
It was.
As a kid, that was a heavy.
Yeah, that was a really good bike. And then I had a delivery one day to down on the lakefront to a condo down there. And it turned out that the man's wife was home, and they were getting rid of some, were they bunk? Yeah, they were bunk beds. And so I says, what are you going to do with those? And she says, well, I'm going to give them to Goodwill or whatever, And I says, I could really use them. I says, I got 5 boys at home, and we could use the bunk beds, Oh, she says, you want them? She says, Don won't. Well, Don didn't mean anything to me other than it was her husband's name. And when she signed the bill, she signed it Mrs. Don Hudson. Well, Don Hudson played for the Green Bay Packers. And at one time, he owned a Chevrolet dealership in Racine. Mm-hmm. And but I never did see him. But it was interesting. So, but your mother asked about what Grandma made, and I don't know if Andy will remember this or not, but at one time I showed the kids a paycheck I had from Merchant's Delivery, and I got paid $3.10 an hour. And for that $3.10 an hour, I could go in Monday and work until noon, work all day Tuesday, Wednesday work all day, Thursday maybe work another half day, and Friday work all day, and then I'd have to go in Saturday to make up my time for the 2 days that I got cut short on.
Straight time.
Yeah, that's straight time. And then eventually we had the union come in there, and we voted the union in, and things turned around for us. We got better pay, and
Well, and was it a strike situation? I'm recalling a
we had
Yeah,
several strikes.
it was going to be a real fast strike. They always say you go out on strike, it's going to be a real fast one. How many weeks were you out?
Oh God, we were out a long
Oh, it
time.
was hard. You got no money coming in. You got to buy milk, and
So then,
we got family.
one of the guys that was on strike said that there was a certain gas station down on Lathrop Avenue in Racine, and he says you can rent a U-Haul there, and he says, the guy's going to be real reasonable with us because he's for the unions and he doesn't think this strike is right. And I took another guy and we went down and rented the truck and we went out and started moving people. And I mean, we give them a cut rate on it, but I mean, we had to pay for the truck and the gas and all that. But he kind of cut that down for us too. So we had a little bit of money coming in, you know.
Yeah, but first you went and got that taxi, right? Drive.
Oh, this taxi.
He's going to drive taxi in the city.
Yeah.
And he worked, how many hours?
I worked a lot.
He worked the whole day, and he made $3 and something.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
He was,
Well, they
he was
didn't,
so
when they
angry he
hired
didn't
me,
cash the
when
check
they,
for us. Never
when-
cashed it.
when they hired me, they didn't tell me that I had to pay for the gas going in the car. Well, I mean, I had some good fares, but you're out there and you're going for maybe 2-3 hours, and you're driving around not picking anybody up, you know. And
So he says, I can't do this,
so-
you know?
I got reported to the unemployment department
Because you turned down the
By-
job.
Yeah, merchants had called me back and asked me to come back, and I said, no, I didn't want to come back.
No, it was a taxi job, John. They said you turned down the job because, and you said, yeah, can you survive on $3 for the day? And you
Okay.
showed them the check,
Okay.
you know.
So I went down to the unemployment department, you know, and showed them the check. I says, that's what I made. I says, I can't support a family on that. So they gave me back my unemployment. We
Yeah, you gotta fight for it, but
we fought for
we
everything.
made it through.
And there were several
It
other
was tough.
strikes, and during one of the strikes, I took on some painting jobs for a guy that had some apartments and stuff, and he had a couple rental houses that we painted. Oh,
Made it
I
through.
mean, you do something to make a go of it, you know.
Pay your bills.
I mean, we
put
had
food
5 kids we had to put food on the table for. Unemployment wasn't doing the job. So I took a chance.
on. Yeah.
Well, Aaron asked a question earlier that we'll go back to.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, it was about Uncle Matt.
Oh,
So, do we want to talk about the time he burnt down my toothpick model home that I built in my architecture, whatever class?
No, banana splits car. Banana splits car.
Banana splits car. Jump in anytime here, Mom. Fire
Love jacket.
in the garbage can at the paper stop.
How many fires did he set?
My locomotive type of.
I know your house, that house you made was so beautiful. And I looked for it and I couldn't find it.
many years later,
But
we
I don't
found
think
out what
anybody
happened.
said
No,
anything.
nobody said anything.
He set it on fire.
See,
Behind the
my
house.
problem, I mean,
Behind the
the
house.
problem was I had a little stove. It had two,
Oh, my
you know,
God.
2 burners, not burners, but
Cast iron stove
yeah,
in the garage.
where you could put your wood and stuff in there. Well,
He'd work out in the garage and
I'd work on the cars out in the garage, and I'd have that going, you know, and it'd be nice and comfy in there. Well, Matt
knew
took
how to
advantage
use that
of it.
stove.
He knew how to use that stove. He made sure the thing was cleaned out too.
Poor Matt.
You do.
Huh?
What did he do?
He burnt your dad's model house down. Well, I just wanted to see what a house looked like when it was on fire.
He was a paper boy too. I remember in this one party would never give him a good tip. He walked by their house, he'd take the paper up on the roof. Keep going. It was a friend of mine.
That sounds like that.
She calls and I said, he will be right over with the paper. Remember that? Well, he worked hard though. He did.
Of course, there's the time that your
He did
dad
things, but
had
he
the
did good
paper
things.
route. It was a Saturday, and I was going over to George's barber shop, and I had all the kids in the back. We had a Oldsmobile, they called it a Vista
Oh,
Cruiser
man, what?
station wagon. And
This is why they put locks on the doors when you have kids.
so I said to the kids, get in the car, we're going, you know. So they get in the car, they put Joe in the back seat there, and the doors closed and everything. So I come around, I made a left turn, and I made a right turn, and I'm going down the street, and the kids are all yelling at me, Dad, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, what? Joe's in the middle of the street back there. The door came open,
He slid right
and he
out.
slid right out. I said, well, you
Grabbed the
didn't.
handle on the door when you went around the curve.
Probably,
To
yeah,
balance
yeah.
it and boom, the door.
But the thing was,
remember
the rest of the kids in the car,
Sitting right next to him.
the rest of the kids in the car, I thought had put his seatbelt on. Because we had the old type
I don't even
seatbelts
know
that
if
went
we had
around your
But we
lap.
didn't wear seatbelts.
You didn't wear them in
They
those
never,
days.
you
Didn't
never,
have
yeah, it
car
was
seats.
not a law that you had to wear them.
We didn't wear them.
They just, I think they just started putting those in the cars, or did I put those in there? I know there was one or two.
No, there were seatbelts, but nobody
Yeah,
wore them.
yeah.
We did, actually, if they were a nuisance, we'd stuff them between the
Yeah,
back and the seat. You stuffed it in the crevice there, so.
One good thing about your Uncle Matt, I said, look, there's one thing I want from you in high school here. Please finish high school and get your degree. And he did that. He did that for me.
I remember his graduation party. There was a lot of joking going on.
of course, then there were the little incidents where mother comes in the house one
I knew
day.
he wasn't going on to school. But...
She looks up at the
Oh, we
ceiling
talked about
and-
that the other day.
Yeah, but it's on camera.
Oh, okay.
And she sees all these spots up on the ceiling.
It's that.
So I took and used Kills, and I went over it, and then I used regular paint, and it looked pretty decent, you know. And coming a couple days later, they're
For
back.
weeks or whatever, and look, what?
And we're trying to figure out how they are, because we knew they didn't bleed through the paint. Well, the story come out that the kids are taking the ketchup bottle and they're
Because
going
it's
like
the
this to
hardest.
see who can make the stuff go up on, you know. That stopped real fast.
Don't get any idea.
Well, you asked for it.
So, Mom, how about you? I mean, Dad talked a lot about his youth and things. I don't really know anything about my mom as a little girl. You know, what sort of things did you like?
I like sports. In those days, boy, girls wear dresses, and you didn't wear blue jeans, and you didn't wear slacks, and I loved to wear blue jeans and slacks. So I guess they called me the tomboy, I don't know. But I loved to roll. I liked to ice skate. We had the pond, the zoo pond, and that's where we would all end up, groups of us down there from school. I loved to do that. We would have paper drives where a whole bunch of us would go together, and we'd take a big trailer and push it down the street and just load this whole thing with paper. And we would see which class could bring in the most, and whoever won that got a day off of school. And I was always in with the kids like that.
Did you share a bedroom with somebody?
At one time there were three of us in the bedroom. Mary, my sister Mary, and Lori and I. And then as they got married, it's like we had another free bedroom, and pretty soon I had my own bedroom. Yeah.
So, like your home, how was that heated? In those
We had coal. So you would have to go down and shovel in the coal. And you'd have to take out the ashes. I had to do that sometimes. Hot water, yeah, hot water heater. When you were going to take a bath, you go down a half hour, 20 minutes before, light the heater. It was about so big, round. You opened up the iron door, turn the gas on, light it, close it up. That's
That would
how you
heat the
heated the
water.
water, so you had hot
So you
water for your
you
bath.
only heated it when you used it?
Yep.
So how'd you do dishes?
Sometimes we
Stove.
heated on the stove.
I know my mother had what they call the
We didn't have
water kettle,
dishwashers,
you know.
soap like you have today, like your Dawn.
Yeah,
We would take sometimes bars of soap and just go in the hot water. We didn't have any of that. You didn't have toothpaste like you have today. You
Use
know,
baking soda a lot.
Crest wasn't invented at that
Well,
time.
that's not so funny, Ben, because look at your toothpaste, they put baking soda in toothpaste.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. The same way with detergent now. A lot of people used to use Arm & Hammer baking soda in their wash, and now they put it in detergent.
We had ringers.
Yeah,
I don't,
no microwave.
you'd do your laundry, and then you put it in the rinse water, and then you'd run it through the wringer. And you had to be careful your hands didn't get in there.
Okay,
Most
so
of,
like, did you have a refrigerator or did you have
We had ice.
icebox?
Icebox. And the man would come with the big chunk of ice, have a piece of leather on his shoulder, and the two jaws that grabbed this hunk of ice. And he'd come in with that, and you'd open the door, and he'd come walk in. You open the ice went in the top part of the refrigerator. And you just throw that chunk in there.
So there was no electricity, huh? It was just cooled by that? Or
yeah, no, that's all it was cool.
inside or anything?
Well, I mean, they were specially built.
Chris, I don't know that. How long
What?
did a chunk of ice last? I don't remember that.
I'll bet you
It
didn't
depended.
open the
It
door.
would depend on how well the insulation was in the unit you had. Now, my folks had it was a big unit. I think there was 4 doors on it, and 2 doors was where you put your milk and you know, your food and stuff, and then up on top you had a hunk of ice one here and one hunk of ice one over there, if I remember right. But
Ours
that
just
thing,
had a big one.
that thing was insulated really, really well. And the ice, you know, I think it was like every couple of days or so he'd come by. And he'd have, our guy had like a flatbed truck with maybe a ridge on it like this, and then the ice would be stacked up on it. And boy, when it was summer, he really had to move fast because that, you know, stuff was melting. And he'd bring it in and put it in there, and then you give him what, $1 or whatever he charged you for the ice, you know.
I don't remember that. You know,
Well, that was
we were
done.
pretty young at
That was in
time, yeah.
Kenosha, and the milk was not like what you guys have now.
They deliver it.
You get milk bottles, and the
Like
cream
you got out there on the shelf.
sat on top. And then in the wintertime, I always like to run. I guess every kid did like to get out there and get that milk bottle because the cream would freeze and it would pop up so far above. Take the cap and push the cap right up. You know, and then you grab
Little
that and you
cardboard
just
circle
start
caps.
eating
Yeah.
the frozen cream. Yeah.
Okay.
And then when the cream melted and went back down into the bottle, before you use the milk, you take and shake it to mix everything up in there. You know, then that was what you would call today regular milk. And it wasn't until, geez, I don't know.
Well, actually, we had like a door on the side of our house, and they'd open that door and set your milk on there and close the door.
You know, we had our home on Oregon Street.
Had the
We
milk
had
box?
Had a milk box built on the side of the garage.
Wow.
So you came out the back door, because that garage was connected, and, you know, walked across and,
And then our family got so big that that little door wasn't enough, and then he'd come with his bottles in the racks and come to the back door, and you'd tell him, I want 4 today or whatever.
We couldn't have had anything frozen if you had no real refrigeration.
No, it was just a cooler type thing.
Yeah. So what if like somebody went hunting or something and got an animal? What did you do with it? You can't.
You get dry ice.
Oh,
They had dry ice back then.
it's
Because I know,
really cold.
yeah, it's really cold and you cannot handle dry ice with your bare hands. You have to wear gloves.
Or something.
Yeah, well, you have to wear gloves so you don't burn, because dry ice will burn.
Andy,
It's made
were
with
you
chemical.
little when they
a long
delivered
time ago.
when they delivered milk by horse-drawn?
No, you know, I remember the Borden guy, but that was...
Progressive Dairy.
Oh, was it
had horses.
Progressive? Okay.
Yeah.
No, he had a truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they'd come down the street with the horse and,
When I was a young child, we had milk delivered to the home.
yeah.
It's actually come back now. I've seen a milk truck go around the subdivision every once in a while.
Really?
Really?
And they deliver in glass bottles.
Oh, be darned.
Wow.
You can buy that in the store now too.
Well, yeah, I've seen the glass bottles in the
Yeah.
store.
So, yeah, it's what is old is new again, you know? Well, that stuff all comes back.
So,
So, I mean, is there anything in your younger years, anything in particular about your parents, either one that you want to share?
well, go ahead.
Well, my parents, gosh, I can't say enough good about them. They were just beautiful, beautiful, good people. And I love them dearly. And their children and their family were their whole life.
When you talk to me, you have told me in the past about your dad in particular really liked my dad.
Oh,
your husband.
my mother and dad both
Yeah,
really
they
liked
were.
John. And they just took him in as their son. And they were really good. to
Well,
him.
your great-grandpa was a heavy...
Grandpa Kowalski.
Yes. Grandpa Kowalski was a heavy-set man, but he was fun.
He was a joker.
And I come over to the house one day, I'm telling secrets, to pick Grandma up.
You don't
So
tell
he
those stories.
lets me in the front door and takes me out to the kitchen and he goes, shh. And he points up the stairway because they had the stairway went up.
We're trying to pull a joke on him. I'm not home.
She's
You
not
call
home.
and you
See,
call at the house.
So-
he gets a phone call and I'm saying to him, John, I'm not home. I'll be home in a while. I'm upstairs talking. My
So
dad says,
her dad goes like that and he
go
points
upstairs.
upstairs.
She's up there talking.
So I go real silently, I go up the stairs and
He's opening the door.
I'm opening the door and Mary comes over there and she goes wham! And she
come
says,
in here.
you can't come in here, Carol's on your slip. You
Get
can't
outta
get out of here. I said, Mary, if you let off a little pressure, I could get my foot out of the door and I could go. But she jammed my foot in the bottom of the door, you know, but there was all kinds of
Oh, we always are doing
all kinds of fun,
funny stuff.
all kinds of fun over there. Before we were married, you were the only one home, weren't you?
Fred and I.
Fred and you, yeah, that's right. And Fred had his room up in the attic part of the time.
Jeez, where was Fred?
Anyways, I was working in Racine. My job was in Racine. And sometimes I get off of work late and you know, driving back and forth late and all of that stuff. So your grandmother's mother and dad asked me if I would like to rent a room. But, you know,
We were engaged and we only had a couple
Yeah.
weeks to the wedding. That's what that.
so
But he didn't want any.
I rented the room and I did some while I was there on the weekend and stuff, or if I had a day off, I did some painting inside for them and I helped around the house, in other words, you know, and they treated me so good. It was really nice, you know.
They were good people.
Yeah,
They were good
yeah, they
Christian
were
people.
very
They
nice.
were good to all of our friends. They would help and do whatever they could with your friends.
And I mean, even her sisters and brothers, they all welcomed me into the family, and you know,
We're all
it was
good.
really
We have good
nice.
relationship, all of my sisters.
Now, your dad grew up in Watertown, right?
Yep. He,
Guys, Watertown, you know, we've been there. It's only about 20 minutes west of here.
his dad had a farm there, but his dad died young of heat stroke out on the farm. He was working the farm, sat down, and he died. And my dad at that time was only 10, I believe, or that close in that age. And then they sold the farm and they moved to Racine. But my dad said that it was tough work. He said farming was, he did not like
Where'd your
farming.
mom grow up? I forget now.
Iowa, her mother died in what they call the Black Death, and they had like, let's see, how many were there? There was Dorothy and Father Jean and Eugenda and Norb and my mother, the 5 of them. And her mother was expecting, and she died with that Black Death.
And we're talking Kesslers here.
Kesslers, my mother's family. And so that left my grandfather with the 5 children to raise. And yeah, she was in Iowa.
And he was a musician and a church organist and
Teacher,
very well educated.
yeah, and he ended up, he was a mailman, but that was a good profession at the end there, with a good retirement. He ended up as a mailman, actually. But he had a violin, he played violin.
And piano and harmonica.
Yeah, he played the organ in, I believe, Holy Name Church in Racine.
I think he played in Kenosha too. And I forget the name.
He could have
but
played in Iowa up there too.
His name
Andy.
came up, and I remember somebody knew that history in this church in Kenosha that he played at.
Because, my mother's family, she had 2 sisters that were Franciscan nuns and a brother that was a Jesuit priest. And then her other brother who got married, and she got married. And she was the oldest in the family. But she had to go and live with her grandmother for a while because it was pretty rough with the family there and only grandpa. And I think it was kind of tough, I know. Because I know when my parents got married, both of them said the only thing that they really wanted to do, they hoped that they would both live long enough to raise their children and not have one of them die, because it was too difficult when your children lose a parent young.
So, Dad, where did your mother grow up? And we're talking
Nellie Bridget Lavelle.
Lavelle, yeah, I was trying to recall the last name. And that's okay.
Yeah. She grew up in, I want to say Hayward, Wisconsin. That's way up north. And I don't know the whole family history on her side. I know very little about my father's side.
Well, and okay, let's talk about your dad. He came from, where did he grow up?
He was born and grew up in the Guernsey Islands, which is between, I believe it's between Great Britain and
Is it France?
France. Either France, France.
I think
Yeah.
it's France.
And he migrated to Canada.
Sorry, the dog was
And
bumping the camera here.
at the age of 16, he tried to get into the Canadian Army, and they wouldn't take him because he was too young. So he waited a few months and went back and lied about his age and got in. But he played soccer, and he was assigned to a entertainment battalion or whatever for the Canadian troops, and they would go around from base to base playing soccer games against the troops on the base, And then later, when he came to the States, he worked for the Simmons Company in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and they made beds and mattresses and so forth until they moved out of Racine, and he retired just before they moved out of Racine. But my mother married and had a boy and a girl by her first husband, and he died of a heart attack.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, John Roberts.
Okay.
And Mary Ann Pomeroy and George Pomeroy are my half-brother and sister. And I don't know the whole story on everything, but my dad was apparently a friend of this John Roberts, a very good friend of him. And after he passed away, In 1933, he married my mother. And in 1935, there was a child born. His name was Bernard John. And he lived, what did we say?
He only lived a few weeks.
It was only a few weeks or a couple of months. And he passed away of what is known as the blue
baby.
Blue baby, which today
crib
they consider it a crib death. In other words, he got turned over and somehow smothered.
Or
Something
Or
happened.
inhaled his exhaled air. That's
Or,
what I think
well,
a lot happens with these
That could
types
be.
of deaths. And they
Yeah.
asphyxiate on it.
Yeah.
That's a theory.
Anyways, in 1936, I was born. And my father lived until he was in his 70s. I got that information back home, too.
Okay.
And mother was in her 70s or
Oh, I don't even remember how.
later. Seems to me Dad
It's hard when you lose a
Dad
parent.
was
I
in
don't
74 or
remember all that.
75, somewhere around there when he passed away.
And you mentioned he played soccer and he
Yeah.
played for Indian Motorcycle.
You're right. Yeah, auto racing there.
You know, that was a league. I saw something on public TV. And they were talking about this Great Lakes Soccer League that he was part of. And they would travel all up, I guess, up and down Lake Michigan here, playing different teams that were sponsored by companies such as Indian Motorcycles.
Yeah.
So, and then, we've got the pictures and the medal out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Won some championships, so.
And on some of those pictures, I think his dad is even on there.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure, but I think. No, I know I know my grandmother, his mother, came over here because and then she went from house to house. In other words, she'd maybe be 6 months or a year at one of the sons, and then she'd go to a daughter's house, and because I remember her being at our house, English lady, and she sat in her rocking chair with her shawl over her shoulders, and she would drink her tea, and I never really got to talk to her because she was so elderly that I don't even know if she was speaking anymore at the time, But I do that much I remember about it.
Anything like
Okay, I want to talk about, we wanted to have children, and I wasn't getting pregnant. And it was really, we were really feeling it. And the doctor said that I had to take it a little easy. So we decided I was going to stop work.
Yep.
So I quit my job and stayed at home. And I don't even remember the time, but it wasn't too long and I did get pregnant. And that was when your dad came. And I tell you about the day he was born. We were so thrilled. But
Now, you have to remember, Mom, my other brothers are going to see this too, so. And that's okay, if you were that happy and
there's a
ecstatic, I
story
would agree,
about
you should
each
be.
one of them. I mean, maybe there was 5 in a row. It's okay, but I love every single one of them. And I wouldn't trade them for anything. And it was great raising 5 sons.
Okay, go back to how happy and ecstatic you were.
Oh, Andy. Labor was tough for me. All 5 boys, labor was 25 hours. And it was rough. And it was hard labor for that long a time. So, and there was a reason for that, a health reason. We didn't know it at the time. But anyway, finally Andy came. And we went down. I was out when he was born. It's different years ago than it is today. A lot of them are awake when the baby's born and that, but they had given me so much I was out. But when I came to and they brought Andy, well, they didn't bring him in, did they? I think we had to walk down to see him the first time.
You were in a
And
wheelchair.
we went down the hall to see him, and we went up to the window and looked, and there he was. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, is he a big, what did I say?
I know what I said.
What did you say?
I said, that's a moose.
He was
You used the
big.
term barrel chested in the past too.
He was big. He was 8
big.
pounds
He was
and
big.
10 ounces, wasn't it, Andy? I believe.
I think I was 8'10". I think
Yeah.
Blaze was.
And that's a lot to give a first child that big. But then we named him Andrew James,
Yep.
meaning manly, and that's why we named him that way.
You got to remember, back in those days, it's not like it is nowadays. Fathers were in a waiting room with other fathers waiting. You were not allowed to go into the receiving room or whatever, where
Or
the
by
baby
your
was.
wife. You were
To-
by yourself.
Yeah. All by yourself, unless you had some relatives, and a couple of them, I think I did have relatives up there with me, but, your mother's sisters
Well,
or
actually-
brothers or whatever.
They couldn't tell you the sex of your child. You didn't know that till they were born.
Yeah. None of that. I mean, today it's
They didn't do any
it's
ultrasounds.
so different.
We didn't
today.
have that. So it was different, and it was a surprise. But we were happy with every child.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Our family, I don't know, there's bad times in every family. Your brothers get into it, they got into it.
Did you ever, when you were having kids, did you ever want a baby girl?
I always wanted a
Just
baby
never-
girl. I always wanted
We
a
always
girl.
wanted one.
Yeah.
At least
But
one.
when the boys came, I love every one of my sons, and I wouldn't trade them. And it was great raising them.
I mean, I think one thought that your grandma and I had was that, if this is what God wants for us to have boys, this is fine.
Yeah.
We'll do what we do with them. And we had fun with all
Oh, we
these
had
kids.
a great time, just like you guys do here.
I mean, each one of them,
Well, like when I get that question, Aaron, my response is God knew that I didn't have the patience to raise girls.
And there's a lot of truth to that. That's probably true for myself.
well, maybe for me.
And it was real hard for Grandpa to have children around because he didn't have children around.
I was like
when
the
he was
only
growing up.
child at home. I mean,
And it was real difficult for him. But I would do it all over again the same way. And I feel with us, we just felt that God had a hand in our relationship and we were meant to be together. And
still does.
yeah, celebrating 50 years of marriage, it's like, it just hit me real hard when we were with our friends down there in Florida and they had that surprise party and they came out the side door singing and I almost started crying, and I'm a pretty tough gal. I don't cry too easy. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, 50 years of marriage. And I thought, when John said about having a party, I thought, we got to do that. We got to celebrate that with our sons, our family, our sisters, our grandchildren, because we really thought it was special.
It was.
It's special. And God directed our life, and He's the whole purpose. One thing that is special of Grandpa and mine, always has been, is the Peace Prayer of St. Francis, and that's how we lived our life, and that's our favorite prayer. And it's just a really good prayer.
I remember a lot of the times when we had, like when we lived on Fifth Avenue, we had a big side yard. There was actually another lot. And we'd have all the families over. And, all the kids were there and they were playing and I remember your sisters going around hiding pennies in the grass and stuff, and then they'd have a scramble for it, and
Yeah, your dad's got some movies, I think, of that, those parties on Fifth Avenue. Our
and I
first one.
remember every year Grandpa Kowalski and Grandma Kowalski, was it a week or 2 weeks they took out at Wind Lake?
They would rent a cottage out on the lake, and then we would go
The
Boating and
families would
swimming
go
out
out there.
there.
Either on the weekends, all the families would be out there with them, or during the week.
We did a lot of
I remember
picnicking.
one time, Grandma went out there with them during the week, and I would, on my way back in, I think I was working on the road at the time. And I would
The
come-
one time I remember you stopped there.
Yeah, I stopped there.
For the night or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a lot of fun going out in the boats, and I remember Jerry yawning and I goofing
Yeah,
around in the
yeah.
water. A lot of fun. So, I was never great at fishing or hunting or any of that kind of stuff. I tried it a little bit. I used to like to go schmelting. Uncle Jerry,
Remember that?
Uncle Jerry, and
Oh, those
Did you
his
guys ever do
friend of his.
little fish.
They're little
Springtime.
bitty fish.
They run.
They're called
Kind of like
schmelt.
sardine, but
And you
Yeah.
fry them up. Oh, they're good eating.
so
And
just
you go out with a big net, you
Yeah.
throw the net out there and leave it,
You
and
have to
then
go
you
at night
bring
when
it
it's
in.
dark.
Yeah.
And
Go out there
we'd
when
sit up
it's
till midnight cleaning those
Oh,
fish.
God.
Buckets of them. And then we'd freeze them.
Yep.
Yeah, we did quite a bit
We
of
had
that.
quite a bit of that.
We did that right off of Lake Michigan
Yeah.
there.
Right off the piers.
Yeah.
Till the piers started to break apart and kind of ended that. I don't know if they do much of that down there anymore or not.
yeah,
I don't think so.
I couldn't tell you. No. Well, so, you have grandchildren now?
Yep. 10.
Well, started with Aaron. You guys asked me if I'd watch them. They were both working.
Yeah.
I don't remember the length of time. At least a year, right? I enjoyed it, Aaron. Really liked you there.
Maybe a year and a half?
Yeah. Close to 2 or something.
Could be.
I didn't think I would ever do that, but then they asked, so.
So you have 10 grandchildren? What did you ever anticipate? How many, grandchildren did you think you'd have? Or did you ever think about that?
Never
I
really
don't think
thought a
we
lot
ever thought
that.
about it.
Numbers.
I know we both had thoughts about, are we ever going to see any girls in this family? And it took the younger ones to give us the girls, so.
We had a good streak going.
Wow, yeah, because it took a
Yeah.
while to get that first girl.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't think that ever happened.
no.
But it's okay if that's what it is.
So, okay, name your grandchildren.
Aaron, Ben, Blaze, Ivan. Those are Andy's. And then there's Adam and Colin, Taylor, Brooke, and Johnny, Dylan, and Zoe.
Very good.
I should have had you do that.
You do it much better.
You can repeat it.
Your turn. And Grandpa on the road, that was challenging. Like we all have challenges, but we did fine.
Yeah, we
At
made
times
it.
it was
Many
rough.
years, too.
Yeah, because he
25?
25 years.
Something like that, yeah.
Over the road trucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he worked for the major ones. He worked for Merchants, Western, Olin, right?
Yep.
And then you,
And he worked for Schneider in between. And
Mom, you
Schneider.
actually worked on too.
I
'Cause
worked.
I was into my teens.
Yeah, I worked. My brother did homes, and I was their finisher. I would do the painting on the inside and the outsides of brand new homes. I would stain all the cabinets in the homes, all the doorways, the doors, any wood in there that had to be stained,
The windows.
the windows, and hang the wallpaper,
Yep.
clean up the house when they were ready to be sold. And they were good-sized
And then-
homes. They would go for 200 and some thousand.
At Blaze's age, 14, I started working with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. All of our boys
So,
worked through high
probably-
school, and
I think I worked with you for maybe 3 years.
yeah, you
Just
did a lot of
scratched it
paper
out.
hanging. Actually, you ended up doing better work probably than I did with the paper hanging. Yeah, I know.
Eventually, yeah.
It wasn't my thing to do that, but my brother wanted me to do it. So I would finish all
But the
his
boys,
things.
I don't know if they even ever heard this story, so.
No.
they didn't
Oh, I
know
worked
that.
hard.
Yep, Grandma
And
worked
I
hard.
also, if there was not work for me inside, then I was the cleanup guy outside, picking up all the scrap. and
Yeah.
Throwing it in the
Yeah,
dumpsters and,
yeah. I kind of forgot about some of that. Did that for a while. And then I went to work at Lake Electric Motors, and I worked there for 5 years. Everybody was gone, and you were working, and I thought, well, I'm going to see about getting a job. And the reason I went to a factory job is because I wanted good pay and I wanted time off on the holidays to be with family. So I did get that job, and I ended up being one of their top winders eventually for their motors. We made Minn Kota motors, which they're on the market today
trolling motors
for fishing.
Okay.
And I ran the big machines to wind those motors. And they got the newest machine in, and they put me on it, which I was surprised because they had a lot of talented people
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
And they put me on that machine. But I did like 4 different jobs in one. Boy, I tell you, work in these places. But yeah, and it was fun, and it was tough, and I learned a lot. I was with a lot of different people, a lot of different walks of life, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was tough. It was hard work.
You know, just to give you guys an idea of, because you're all getting, you know, to the point where you're going to be going out into, well, Aaron's are already out into the job world.
Real job, yeah.
I worked at Merchants Delivery, and I went there and applied for a job. And the owner of Merchants Delivery, his name was Art Eastman, and he was to be nice, son of a gun.
And how did you feel
And
at the time? Desperate.
I was desperate for a job. I mean, I really needed a job that paid some money, you know. So he looks at me and he says, okay, so you drove truck in the service. He says, what makes you think you can drive truck out here? And I looked right back at him and I says, what makes you think I can't? He says, you're hired.
Yeah,
That's how desperate Dad was.
Yeah.
He had the right answer. Had the right attitude.
Well, I'll tell you, my dad was really kind of ticked because he told John here, he said, I can't see this. You gave this time to your country to serve in the Air Force, and you come back and nobody will give you a decent job. My dad was
Yeah.
right about that. I remember him talking to you. He said, that's not right to do that to these servicemen. But then that started it when you got with Merchants, and he started.
But as it turned out with Merchants, I was among their top loaders and drivers for over-the-road furniture hauling, and it was a fun job. All through all of this, we're here today. We survived 6 dogs, 5 children, all boys, and now we have 10 grandchildren, boys and girls. And we hope to be here for several more years.
We love you guys, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You're very special to us.
Thank you.
I learned a lot.
Thanks.
I never
Thanks.
knew a lot of this.
Well, it's kind. I guess your dad is right. It's nice because I don't really know anything about my family because it wasn't passed down to me. You know, I mean, I think Andy, I think you have some of the mementos from my dad, his service stuff, and
That's okay, I'm teasing you. It's like, my brothers are gonna go, what does Andy have?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You can wipe that out.
No, that's, they can hear me say that's, some of the advantages for being the firstborn.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I am teasing saying that if this cut makes it on, but, well, I really appreciate this. And it's a good way to celebrate your 50th, to do something like this too.
Well, I mean, it's our 50th. It's Grandma's, 73rd?
Yep.
73rd birthday, yeah.
Yeah. And in October, I'll be 75, so it's a big year for us,
So,
I'll tell you.
I need you to just look right into the camera and just give us that, Mom,
Look.
you love your children, you love your grandchildren.
You hear it all the time, because I feel that way. I love my sons. Every one of them, Andy, Matt, Tom, John, Joel, I'm proud of all of you. And I love my grandchildren, from the first one down to the last. They're all very special. And I love my husband. He and I have been good partners and good friends, and I love him dearly.
I love you too.
Yep.
That was a stretch.
Okay, I don't think either camera really picked it up. Maybe I can somehow merge the frames.
They heard it. We are really excited about our party. And you guys mingle with our friends. They're friends that I went to grade school, high school with. There's my brothers and sisters, and of course our children.
And I can say,
You
some
talk
of these
to them,
friends that'll
they'll
be
tell you
there,
stories.
There's a couple of them that you guys will feel like, wow, this is one of my mom's friends, and I feel as comfortable with them or her. There's in particular a couple of them that they could almost be your mother. That's how well Mom and her friends know each other.
Oh yeah, they're my sisters. Yeah. Pretty much all of the gals I invited, they're like sisters to me. We've been together so long. You just really get to know each other well. Yep. We're still in touch. We've been in touch all these years. Yeah.
Well, I mean, is there anything else? Or?
I just want to say something to your sons.
Okay, sure.
Life in a family is not easy. I mean, brother against brother, the oldest, the second, the third, whatever. And sometimes there's running with your dad. And I just want to say, don't hold grudges. Keep to your faith, because that'll bring you through. And, you're going to have a beautiful life. You got a beautiful life now. And it's going to get better. Because your mom and dad are working hard to give you guys what Grandma and Grandpa couldn't give their children in education. So we love all you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And we love Andy and Matt and Tom and Sean and Joe.
And we love
Just
you
as
too.
much. I know you do. And we like it. We wish we could see more of you, but who knows?
Hey, maybe future. You're welcome.
We're just praying and hoping that our health
Holds out a little bit.
holds out. Yeah, No, I'm
our-
really
our-
feeling good up here on this trip. And I want to take that back with me and just keep on going with it.
Well, and I'll add a comment in here too, you guys. It's, you don't know, you really have it good that you can appreciate to have grandparents at this age you are.
Yes, both of them.
Yeah.
Because
I had none.
Dad's father died when I was in first grade. I have some memories of him, you know, but I never got to sit and talk to him.
Yeah.
Now, my mother's dad, Grandpa Kowalski, I did, but most of that took place, 8 years he was in a hospital bed,
Yeah.
in a nursing home, and that's how I know.
Yeah, you were a toddler. Well, you do remember Grandma and Grandpa on Green Street.
Yeah, I've got, but those are just childhood kid memories.
Yeah.
It's nothing like, I didn't
Talking, no.
really, and your mother died when I was in second grade.
Yeah, she died young.
So, and then Grandpa Kowalski died when I was, I don't know, 16 maybe? And I think your mother was right around there too. They were kind of close.
Geez, I'd have to look up
I'd
dates.
say maybe a year apart. So.
Yeah, my
you
mother
guys
died
had
at
a real
65.
good opportunity, Aaron, to be
And my
20,
dad was
then to be
76.
17 to sit and have a conversation like this with your grandparents.
Yep.
And you have that on the other side, both grandparents living.
Yeah.
You know, and
You're
so
very
for-
fortunate.
I guess my comment here being off camera and whoever's watching this, in particular, the other, your cousins. I hope that they hear this and understand this, and I hope they can appreciate this, at some point in their life.
Yep.
But I don't know if you're done yet, but I just want to personally say that I
Yeah.
really appreciate this. This is wonderful. So I hope the
I
rest
hope
of
it
the
helps,
family
Andy.
enjoys.
I'm not real comfortable on camera, but
That's okay.
you asked it so we did it.
And I hope the rest of them do enjoy it.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yep.
So we thank
We
you
do
again.
too.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
yeah.